Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
so far, I mean,
pre-wine.
eventually it gets too many layers of sticky.
Well, you know, I mean,
I've never
people
seen
love
one
him,
that bad.
so he's got that going for him. He's doing these fun little
Hi.
super.
Oh, no.
I'm good. You know, he's all about kind of that.
Northeast County is
Yeah,
trying to
PR's
snow.
love him.
Oh,
So
wait,
he's
it's
on
not.
hill,
Is
he's
the snow is
well
20.
with that.
Yeah, so
Ooh.
it's sticking.
Yeah, they set up mine.
In mine.
All this other stuff, but I don't know.
Looks like we're recording.
Oh, we're recording
my
now.
district, I
love my
Yeah.
superintendent. They know what's happening. They've got it.
Yeah, it's just, we've had a few technical difficulties with some of our other meetings, so just the fact that we're recording and that we're up and running, it's a good thing.
We started early.
Yeah. Started early.
You edit that.
Just did it out that first 5 minutes. Can't say that it's an educational.
How many parent teacher conferences do you have coming up?
I have tomorrow, Alexander's is at 3:30 and Charlie's is at 4. So I came in at 6:45 this morning, so I can go tomorrow. But Freddie woke up and he was like, "Where are you going, Daddy?" And I'm like,
They have such cute names,
Hey.
Freddie, Charlie,
Thank you.
Alexander, cute.
Yeah, they're fun. Yeah, it's gonna be so exciting. I've never seen this, but Alexander's teacher sent home a survey of what we wanted to talk about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting, so,
That's a good idea. They
Yeah.
should be prepared too.
Right?
It's not just throwing something
yeah.
at her.
So, yeah, we're
That's a great
excited.
idea.
This will be fun.
Make note of that.
Kids are expecting to go to the park and get ice cream after, so.
Really?
That Charlie decided was our family tradition.
I see, yes, I heard something like that.
Do you know where the park is? It's on like 33rd
Oh,
South.
the park, it's like a restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a
Kinda.
restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, we should go.
Never heard of this.
We should go for a brunch one day. They have
So where is it? 33rd?
33rd and about 23rd.
Where's
East?
the 39th?
I'm sorry, 39th. I live on 33rd.
39 South?
39th South and about 29th East. And
Oh.
it's this really fun family-owned little place where they have the
29
dirty sodas and
Olympus High.
ice cream. And,
Yeah. No, I grew up in there. I'm just trying to picture.
yeah.
There used to be like a
What's
Mexican,
up
there's
there?
an Arby's and a Subway, and there's a brick building kind of to the west of that. It really looks a lot better than it ever has. I think,
Yeah,
since I've
they've done a
done
good
it.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah, right by Olympus High School, just across the street.
Oh, so it's on 23rd East.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, 20.
Oh, sorry, up a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, got it.
yeah, we should.
Wait, across from Olympus, across.
From the clock shop. It's
Oh, yeah,
south of the
yeah,
clock.
yeah, okay. South.
Okay,
Okay.
be careful about traditions. I had one son. As we started a tradition, it was a tradition.
Right?
That's right.
You just
Something
had
like
to be really careful, because I was gonna be stuck with it for 15 years.
So true.
You know, so true.
It's so true.
As soon as you do anything they like, it becomes a tradition, right? This was fun.
No, isn't that great? It makes life fun.
It is fun, it's great.
Okay, I've got to go check out that place.
Yeah, for sure. It is a fun place.
Yeah, I lived really close there.
Oh, do you?
Did.
Oh,
used
you
to.
did? Okay.
Grew up
Cool.
kind of behind that clock shop.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, just-
No, that's great. I love that clock shop. Especially at Christmas, with all their nutcrackers.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any presentation.
I've seen their ads in the newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
And then lots of cute.
It's so fun.
Unique.
Yeah, they have really cute music boxes. Yeah.
So do you live over that way?
I grew up there, so I grew up on 35th and 25th, and now I live on 31st and 19th. So not too far.
37th and 21st.
Oh, right by, yeah, that's great. So fun.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Are you fine? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I know we have several people that
couldn't be here, but they're going to join us online. And some of our staff is away, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll quickly go around and do introductions. I think most people know one another by name. If you don't, or you know, some of us don't see one another. I'm Becky Donaldson. I'm a coordinator here at the Utah State Board of Education. And Val, why don't we start with you and we'll go around this way.
Around this way.
Starting with Val.
Title 1.
Nancy Ward, Jordan School District, Title III.
Robert Palmer, I'm an education specialist here, and I oversee the Partnership for Student Success Grant and Intergenerational Poverty and Program Quality Enhancement Grants.
I'm Barbara Smith. I'm the director of Utah Family Partnership Network that works with engagement in low-income schools and represent parents.
Tier Straight Parent Advocate.
Jeff Bohaden. Leslie Evans, School Improvement.
I'm Trina Valdez with the Department of Human Services. I'm the Education Liaison, and my position is partially funded by the Board of Education Youth in Custody.
Sandra Grant, Fiscal Compliance, mostly with all of Becky's people.
Becky Peters, I'm secretary for Dr. Donaldson and kind of fill in and help out for everyone else too. Also kind of helping the online portion of the meeting.
Do you know who's online, Becky?
It says to watching. I'm one of the people. I'll see if I can find out who else is on here.
Okay. So Becky has a copy of the minutes from our June meeting right behind your agenda. So if you want to take a second and look at those, see if those look okay, if there are any changes that we need to make.
It's changed.
Oh, this.
The total
The total
available
ban.
for competitive
Okay.
went down a little bit.
All right, you maybe have Becky make that change.
That happened after the meeting, no?
It did happen after.
Well, then you don't put it in these minutes.
Okay,
It'd be to today's minutes.
all right.
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
even though the information's wrong, then.
You don't change it.
You don't change it.
Prior,
You
of
can
course,
change
it's
it.
a record.
Change, so Becky can make a note.
Yeah.
So we'll have an amendment for their change to
Okay.
the minutes. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, thank you.
Thank you. You know all the Robert's rules stuff that some of us do, Barbara, so I appreciate
It's always tempting, because, oh, we did.
it. Any other discussion or questions about the minutes? Okay, so we'll let Leslie get that information to Becky, and Becky will make a note on the minutes for this week. Do you want to tell us what that amount was that differed from what the minutes from June?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, I'm hoping it's still in my. It's on the spreadsheet. It's 949,747, down from 1,211,377. And the reason for that is due to expiring funds and not having yet heard back from the feds on an extension for for fiscal year, our funds for 17. We're looking for an extension. Since that hasn't come through, we don't have enough money to pay the ongoing progress monitoring that's happening in the CSI schools on their school improvement plans. So we pulled $154,000 from the pool of the competitive money that was going to be available to schools to pay for this year's progress monitoring visits. We did cut it down to from 3 per school for the next year to 2 per school so that we could pay each vendor $2,200 per visit. I didn't foresee talking about
Yes,
this right now, but
I know.
luckily just calculated
But
it
thank you
yesterday,
for the
so you're welcome.
clarification. And Leslie referred to a waiver request that we made to the United States Department of Education. We sent a survey monkey out a couple of weeks ago and included the committee of practitioners on that, so I hope some of you saw that. What happened is because we identified schools for improvement under the Every Student Succeeds Act late, because we have new science assessments, they had to establish cut scores and do all of that, our achievement results last year were delayed. So we didn't identify schools under ESSA until January of 2019. So we were like a year behind. So we had a pool of money that had been set aside from Title I to support school improvement that we hadn't been able to allocate out to eligible LEAs in schools. And that money expired on September 30th because it was from federal fiscal year 2017. So we communicated with the U.S. Department of Education Title I staff. They allowed us to submit a letter requesting a waiver of the tidings amendment to extend the period of availability from September 30th of 2019 to September 30th of 2020. But we have not received a response back from the Department of Education yet to say whether or not that's been approved or not. So the funding Leslie was referring to right now is kind of frozen until we hear back from the Department of Education. So we have to, as she said, pull some of the money that was available to go out to schools to pay contractors who are doing some of the evaluation work for us, monitoring and evaluation.
And until that's approved.
Yeah, until
Okay.
we get that approved, and then we'll have these other funds that hopefully will be freed up that we can then allocate out more to schools. So thank you, that was a good clarification, Leslie. So any other things on the minutes then before we move on? So someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes as they were written with the amendment that Becky will be making to the funding?
Well, the amendment she shouldn't make in last month's minutes. She should just put it in this month's
Yeah,
minutes.
she'll put it on
You
this.
just put it in this month's minutes,
Okay,
that it was reported that these funds have been changed. It's going to be this month's minutes, not in.
okay. Barbara's an expert on this.
Tell a lot of
For many years, yeah, she was on the Davis School District Board of Education.
So, you know, I used to teach
She's an expert.
Government Rules of Orders.
Oh, you've
I
taught?
taught to teach it, not formally, but to the PTA leaders.
Oh,
So you've got a
yes,
whole
that's
bunch of
right.
scared new PTA presidents, and we're trying to teach them Robert's Rules of Order, so we did it in a really fun way.
Yeah, so she's the
Yeah, so
expert,
anyway,
so.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
No, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Nancy. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, so the minutes have been approved. The next thing we're going to talk about is this document right here. When the Every Student Succeeds Act was passed, one of the things that they changed was if there are Title I schools that in the past have had a minimum poverty of 40% for free and reduced lunch, if they wanted to, and then their poverty dropped below that, there's a 1-year grandfathering provision. And sometimes schools, you know, their poverty rate fluctuates a little bit. But if schools drop below that and wanted to seek a waiver, they actually had to request a waiver from the United States Secretary of Education. So when the Every Student Succeeds Act was written, one of the provisions they changed was that LEAs can petition the state Office of Education for that waiver rather than having to go to the United States Department of Education. So what we've been working on is putting together some kind of a written proposal that LEAs could use if they have schools in that situation and want to apply for that waiver, because otherwise they would have to move from a school-wide program to a targeted assistance program, which means rather than serving all the eligible, every student is eligible in a school-wide program, but targeted assistance, they have to use multiple assessments to identify the students that are most academically at risk. It does not matter what their family income situation is, and then they can only serve those identified students with Title I resources and funds. So this is something I've been working on. I've looked at what other states have done and put something together. So if you would take a minute and kind of look through this and provide feedback. We have a Title I directors meeting in November, and I'd like to present this to them at that point in time. And then if it meets your review and the Title I directors, then we can start implementing for the 2020-21 school year.
Well, what did we do during the years when we had the big boom up in Vernal with the gas, oil and gas, you know, and we had schools up there that were severe Title I schools, but then we had these people, you know, had workers come move in, and yet, even though they had money, their lifestyle was low income because they were living out of trailers, and
that really did impact.
How did you? Because they weren't Title I anymore, technically, because their parents were making lots of money, but they were you still had all the issues.
Yeah, Duchesne School District only operates targeted assistance schools.
So they didn't.
Even though they have schools that are eligible to do school-wide, they've only always operated targeted assistance. And I don't recall if it impacted Uinta School District to the extent that it made, you know, a huge difference. But I remember talking with Duchesne District specifically
About that.
about the fact that these people were making high wages. So they weren't really eligible for free and reduced lunch prices, but, you know, they were still people that had in the past maybe been, you know, in impoverished situations, and their children hadn't had as many opportunities as the other children. It was kind of an issue.
I mean, I was in the same situation. I had a federal grant at the time, and we had to ask for a FERC grant. Had to ask for a favor, but a waiver. But I guess I had never asked what you guys did then, because they were still living in the same. They were living out of trailers and the backs of their campers, and you know, they still have a lot of the issues.
Yes, they did.
So South Dakota. Or,
Sandy, do you recall anything that took place with Duchesne or Uinta during that time?
No, we just had a lot of people from out of state coming in to work the fields, and their kids still had the same situations as poverty, even though mom
Well,
had a big
what
paycheck.
happens with Title I is that you take an average, you know, as long as their district average allowed those schools to be served, then we're still okay.
Okay.
We can't serve anything below our district average.
Yeah, so I don't recall any schools being dropped from Title I during that time.
Okay, I was curious.
But it goes up and down all the time, so, but I know it was very concerning to them, so, good question.
Is that a one-track mind? Any considerations for schools that are in improvement that would be requested right here? Alignment with their school improvement plan or something.
Yeah, we could put it on the notes.
So they're at that, just below 40% this year, the year they're living in right now. So they think it might be better next year, or they think it might still stay low next year and then go up.
Yeah, okay, they would apply, because sometimes we do have schools that one year they're like maybe 40, 41, and then they drop to 38 or 39, and then, you know, sometimes they aren't sure, they think maybe it's gonna go back up, they're not sure if it's going to go back up.
Makes it tough to plan your
It
budget.
doesn't.
I just want to understand, I'm so sorry. So they would be applying for this waiver during the year that they're already behind, below.
Yeah, because
For
there's
a
a 1
coming
year,
year.
yeah, there's a 1 year grandfather.
Okay, so it would be, so we're really applying for a second year.
Yeah, so it gives
Okay.
them 1 more year to see if their poverty rate's gonna stabilize, or if it's gonna continue to go down, then they're going to have to move to targeted assistance.
So the rationale is that schools that have 40% poverty need additional resources. Is that?
Well, it's primarily for schools that have been operating as a school-wide program, and then their poverty rates. It's not for schools that just randomly say, my poverty rate's 35 and I'm doing targeted assistance, but now our school wants to all of a sudden
Got it.
become school-wide. It's not,
Okay.
because the poverty threshold is 40%. The basic threshold for Title I is 35%, or it has to be higher than whatever the LEA's average poverty is. For charter schools, it's different. They have to have at least 10 students that are from low-income families, and those students have to be at least 5% of the student population. So we have some
That's
charter
by federal
schools.
standards, not state standards.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
any school-wide or targeted on the charter?
Charters, if they're below the 40%, they're targeted.
Okay.
And we do have some with fairly low poverty rates. So Leslie's made a request that we consider putting in a note or comment somewhere to indicate if the school is in state turnaround or comprehensive support and improvement or some improvement status that, you know, that would be disruptive if they're trying to work on school improvement to then move to a targeted assistance program in Title I. So we can make that addition. I can have you, Max, help craft that language that we want to put in there.
That would be one of their criteria, one of their explanation.
Yeah.
Could be a real, very, strong reason why you
Yeah.
want them to call that.
And would that make a difference as you're making a decision on that?
Well, I think it would definitely need to be something we consider, because I think it would be really disruptive for a school to all of a sudden have to change their whole Title I delivery pattern. Especially if it's, they're in an area where the population seems to fluctuate a little bit from year to year.
Is that something that this committee wants to have, do they get a little bit higher priority? Or do you want to give one of the arguments?
Now, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, she has superintendent's reviewing them and she's got this much money and we can't do all of them. Do this committee want those that are improving to be a higher priority? Or they want a little playing field for everyone else?
Is that how the waivers would be considered? Kind of priority, like can only so many be approved?
No, there's no limit. Just,
They're just asking for a waiver, can't
Yes.
they, or trying not to do it?
Yes.
Okay. So it probably doesn't matter.
But I think we could add something in
I
there.
think it's good information.
I think it's
Rounds
good
out the
information. So, maybe in the, if you look at page 10, maybe on the rationale, there could be, or maybe add in the box or somewhere in there. Anyway, we'll work on that and then we'll bring it back to you. We can send it out via email.
Sorry, if this delays your approval, it's probably not that important. It really isn't.
Yeah, it's just
I easily think we can, we
Okay.
can add it and then
Okay.
send it out to the committee to look at and see if they have any further feedback on
It
it.
might even be in section 2, developing a school-wide plan.
That's what I was thinking.
Like even the last bullet, a school that is identified for improvement and also is receiving Title I funds, which would be LICSI overall performance
Yeah.
funds.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. So I'll-
Shall align their improvement plan with,
Yeah, so we're hoping
Make my
we do,
life easier.
right? Yeah, we're really trying to get schools and improvement to align their plans. And it's a concern for us, it's also a concern for LEAs and especially for the schools. And right now, there are so many plans and a lot of that's coming out of this office because of various programs that have been set up. So an LEA that wants to participate in this program has to have a plan. If they want to participate in this funding stream, they need a plan. If they're a Title I school, they need a plan. And so there are multiple plans, and it's really difficult for schools to, okay, which plan are we talking about? Which one? And then if they're an improvement.
Which improvement plan? even?
So we tried to say you should have one plan, and then all of, braid your resources, leverage your time and fiscal resources and personnel to really focus on this overall improvement strategy. But unfortunately, the reality is they have multiple plans. So there is an internal committee that has started a meeting last year. And that committee has been reorganized now, and we've met once. And Wayne Kidd, who works in the Office of the Legislative Auditor's Office, is writing up a report on how USBE can streamline things to reduce burdens on the LEAs as far as reporting and plans and and all that kind of stuff. So his report's supposed to be finished soon, and then hopefully we can do some work internally to reduce them.
So this happened every 10 years. We have to do that.
Yeah.
Decide if it's hopeful or
Yeah,
sad.
that was my
when I hear
office,
that.
that's my office, I just met, I mean, 15 years ago, and then we'd just gone through that.
Oh,
you know,
really?
yeah.
Trying to
Yeah,
align
and this,
everything?
they're faxing it to me. The pages just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. My secretary goes, "What is that?" I go, "Well, that's the consolidated, LAA plan."
Yeah, that was the, the.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
consolidated, this is the shorter consolidated plan. Wow, I hate to see the original.
Yeah, that was the, yeah. Jeff used to love the cute.
Oh,
Yeah, it came in
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was the Consolidated Utah,
Application.
something, application
Yeah, I can't
plan
remember.
or something.
Where we tried to
Yes.
Blocked it out.
Consolidated Utah, something.
Success? No.
It was
Yeah.
something like
But
that.
it was the shortened version.
And it was all done paper pencil.
Oh,
at
yes.
that time.
It was. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
A couple of questions.
Yes.
Is there a timeline of when schools are notified or a specific way in which schools that meet the definition would be notified of this? And then would it be important?
Well,
to
typically
include it?
LEAs, if they're concerned about it, they reach out to us.
Okay.
And they'll say, this school was 41%, but now we're 39, it's happening. So we wouldn't really be notifying them. It's
Okay.
kind of something
They'd be
that's
aware.
available to them if they choose to do it.
Okay. So is there a
There's not a
deadline by
requirement.
which they would notify us?
Yeah, it's April 15th.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah. So if they want to apply for this for next year, and we get all this ready to roll out, then they would have to notify us in April of
The
this school
previous
year. Yeah, and then they would get permission to do it next school year. And then kind of monitor what happens with their poverty rate, and if it continues to go down, then eventually we just have to say, you're no longer eligible
Right.
to do school-wide.
Two things that I love about what you did here. One, the application itself isn't overwhelming for an LEA. It's pretty concise and basic, and the sample letter is nice for an LEA who wants to submit something that's appropriate, but it has all the pieces. So from an LEA point of view, it's great.
Well, that's good feedback, Nancy, thank you.
The sample letter really helped me understand.
It's
So-
good.
Yeah.
There first.
And I noticed back here too, I made a note on my copy that I need to write somewhere that this is also a sample, where I'm talking about this apple tree, elementary, all that's just, some of the stuff's made up, so. But it's just giving them an idea of what that would look like and how they could do it. So our team will look at this again and look at it really thoroughly and make some suggested revisions to it. Then we'll send it out to the committee, and you can give us any additional feedback you might have. And maybe we'll ask you if you vote to support moving forward with it to the Title I directors in November, or if you feel like it needs to come back to this committee later this school year and have more discussion around it before we roll it out. We're happy to do that.
Who do you want a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the waiver for poverty thresholds, currently as written, that we approve it at this time, as written.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve it as it's written now. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next thing, I'm going to ask Jeff to talk to us about an MOU for migrant education that in the past has been done on an annual basis, and we're hoping to move that to a 3-year process.
So the purpose for the change is just in the interest of time and getting our MOU on time to the Department of Ed. In the past, it's been an issue just because of the way timelines work with board meetings and our state board. We would get a notification that the MOU was due just before, just after our deadline to submit for our October board meeting. So instead of being able to get the notification, submit it in September for approval for the MOU, and then have it approved in October, which would be just a little bit shy of the date that the Department of Ed wanted it. We have to push it back always an additional month because of those timelines. So rather than do that on an annual basis, we petitioned the Department of Ed to allow us to do a 3-year MOU. So we would only have to do it every 3 years, and well, 3 years is a lot more time than a couple of weeks to try to get it taken care of. So the proposal is that we make that change so that we can meet the Department of Ed's deadline, which happens to be in the middle of September, in order to be able to ensure that our migrant funds and our migrant MOU with M6, which is the department's student database, national database, so that we can ensure that kids that travel from one state to another get and continue the services that they began getting in one state. So that continues in the next. That's what the MOU is about. So are we voting for that as well?
Yes.
Or if there are any questions about it, I'm happy to take them.
So on that report, do you have to have the names of every migrant child so you know
No, it's
whether
not.
they've moved or not? I mean, how do you?
No, so the MOU doesn't require any student data whatsoever.
Okay.
It is simply an MOU between the state and the Department of Ed saying that we will allow the Department of Ed to use our student information in that database.
Okay.
And I can give you a very easy example of how that works and why it's to our benefit. But just so that everybody's aware, I got a call, for instance, 2 days ago in regards to a student that had moved out here with their mother. They were migrant, that is, she was working in agriculture out in the fields, and they moved to Utah, so their migrant recruiter knew about it, and through M6 contacted us saying, you have this student moving to your state, please follow up to ensure that they continue in school. And I spoke with that person's mom, that student's mom, and to that date, she hadn't been enrolled yet because she couldn't find the school where she was supposed to go. So I helped her out, I gave her that information, let her know what needed to happen, and the student was enrolled the following day, so yesterday. So it really is a benefit to have that MOU, but it wouldn't happen unless we were allowing the Department of Ed to gather all of our student data in order to support students as they move around the country.
Thank you, Jan.
M6 is the recruiter?
No, M6 is the Department of Ed's student database for migrant students.
Well, it's interstate, right?
Yes.
The data.
Yeah, and it's the only system where we actually share student information from state to state because of our migrant kids being so migratory by definition. So it really allows for us to continue providing services to kids that they would have started in one place and then continue without as many interruptions as possible.
Is that data bank pretty much all migrant? Is that what it's used for, is migrant
It
children?
is only migrant children. So any student that's identified throughout the states as a migrant kid, that database, that information goes into that database. And it's shareable by, it's only shareable from state to state. So the information only gets shared from whoever is the recruiter for that student or that family in their local area to the state office when they move, so that the state office can follow up with the local agencies in the state to ensure they continue on with services.
So I love that through your process. So have you already submitted that? Has it been approved? Or?
The process began, so it is scheduled to go in this month so that it gets on the board agenda next month. for approval.
Okay, any other questions for Jeff? Okay, we have a motion.
I move that we accept that 3-year process. I think it's the right.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the proposed process that Jeff has presented to sign an MOU for 3 years rather than on an annual basis to ensure that our migrant students are not falling through the cracks and as they move from location to location. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Deirdre Straight, seconded that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our theme, we have been tasked by our Assistant Superintendent of Student Support, Leah Voorhees, for each person on the staff in the student support section, which includes special education, our title programs, the prevention programs, adult education, counseling, all of the people, child nutrition, all of the programs that Dr. Voorhees oversees in her role as the assistant superintendent. We've been tasked with writing standard operating procedures, which I think is a wonderful idea, so that we put things in writing and we have processes in place. So as personnel may leave the agency, someone new comes in and they're said, oh, you know, now you're the migrant specialist, you have to do this MOU, and this person comes in thinking, what is this? I'm not sure how this works. Where's the historical information? So that's something that we're in the process of working on this year, and each employee has to work on at least 2 of these during the course of this year as part of our performance goals and plans. So each year, our state has the opportunity to recognize 2 school-wide Title I schools for National Distinguished School Recognition. And there's never really been any process written down. In all the years I've been here, it's kind of been done, you know, this director kind of did it this way, and then a different director would do it that way, and then it's just always changing. It's never been consistent. It's never seemed to really be based on anything that we could hang our hat on and say, this is our process, and make that clear to our LEAs in our schools. So one of the ones that I chose to work on, because we have to submit the names of our 2 distinguished schools to the National ESCA Association by November 30th. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start working on this, I'm going to practice using what I kind of proposed. So I've been working on that, and I want to bring it to you for your discussion and review and feedback, and probably get some great ideas to improve it. But the other thing I've thought about doing is have no provisions under the Every Student Succeeds Act to recognize any schools that are high performing. There are provisions to identify schools for comprehensive support and improvement, and schools that have specific student groups that are underperforming. They are identified as targeted support and improvement schools. So we've identified,
35 CSI.
35 comprehensive support and improvement schools that were identified last winter in January. 331 schools in the state were identified for targeted support and improvement, because there's at least one student group in that school that is not performing well. But we don't have anything in place to recognize Title I schools that are doing a good job. So I've been looking on other states' websites, reading things and looking around, and so trying to put together something that would give schools an opportunity to at least get a certificate and maybe on our website have a list of schools posted. So what I'm proposing is that we have a category of schools called Utah Title I Distinguished Schools, and those would be schools in the top performing 5% of Title I schools. But because we have targeted assistance schools and we have school-wide schools, the targeted assistance schools have never been eligible for national awards. So looking at those two groups separately, so looking at the targeted assistance schools kind of in a ranked fashion, looking at the schools in that targeted list that fall in the top 5%, and then looking at the school-wide schools kind of in a ranked manner and looking at the schools in the top 5%. So that would be Utah Title I Distinguished Schools. And you have a sheet that was underneath this standard operating procedure draft. So as I've gone through the list of data, and this is based on 17 data and 18 data, because we don't have access to any 19 data. You can see right here, we have 95 schools last year that were targeted assistance Title I schools. So if we took 5% of those schools, it's 4 point something, it's close to 5, so we round off to 5. So when I looked at those two ranked lists, there were actually 4 schools that were in the top 5 schools for targeted assistance in 2017 and again in 2018. So you can see those are Northern Utah Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science, Intech Collegiate High School, Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science, and then the Success Academy. So those 4 schools appeared in the top 5% of targeted assistance schools in 2017 and again in 2018. Poverty rates, I have Intech Collegiate's rate there. I was not able to locate the poverty rates for these other 3 schools when I was working on this yesterday. None of those schools are in targeted support and improvement, and they've not received previous national recognition. They haven't been eligible. So that's the first category. If you look down here to the third box, these are the school-wide program schools. And we have 243 school-wide schools last year, so 5% of that's 12 schools. And so I looked at the top 12 schools for those 2 years, and we had Vanguard Academy, Parowan Elementary and Iron School District, Salina Elementary in Sevier School District, and Belknap Elementary in Beaver District that fell within that top 5%. And you can see their poverty rates listed there and what their rank was in 17 and what their rank was in 18. Belknap Elementary in Beaver was actually a distinguished national school last year, so I've marked that over here. So they've already had that opportunity. So in looking at this data, what we really thought, and I met with Leslie and Max and Val, and we talked a little bit about that. We thought that it would be nice if Parowan Elementary in Iron District had that opportunity. They were the 4th school in the rankings in 17, and in 18 they're the 3rd ranking school-wide program school. And they have not had an opportunity. So that's what we proposed to do there. We contacted Iron District and the principal, and they are absolutely thrilled. Superintendent Delaney in Iron District said that school is doing marvelous work, not only in academics, but also in social emotional learning. That they have just gotten some really wonderful things in place to support those children there. So the second category, I'm calling, this gives you all the step-by-step stuff that we would do if we ever have data on time, which we won't, but someday we might. So if you look on page 4, the next one is Utah Title I Reward Schools. A few years ago, Utah had a flexibility waiver from No Child Left Behind, and under that flexibility waiver, we identified priority schools, which were the lowest performing 5%, focus schools, which were the lowest 6 to 15% of Title I schools, and then reward schools were the highest performing Title I schools in the state. So I'm proposing that we kind of reinstate that and we look at schools again, targeted assistance separately and school-wide schools separately, and look at that next 6 to 10% of schools. So looking at the targeted assistance schools right here, we have Itinerous High School and Beehive Academy for Science Technology. And those two schools, as targeted assistance, fell within that band of schools for both 17 and 18. And then for school-wide program schools, we have Birch Creek Elementary in Cache School District, Spring Creek Elementary in Provo, and Monticello High School in San Juan. So Spring Creek Elementary actually was a national distinguished school for closing the achievement gap in 2017-18. And I highlighted Monticello High School here in yellow because they are actually in targeted support and improvement for their students with disabilities. So that kind of eliminates them. So I put them on the list, and as I did further review, they would come off that list. So this list would just be Birch Creek and Spring Creek. So that's kind of what I'm proposing. But as I said, this is all a draft. This document is a draft. But I kind of went through step by step and identified each individual task that would have to take place in order to do that. So it's been an interesting process to go through, and they're really, when we look at 2 consecutive years of data, which is what the National Association requires, it's a very limited number of schools that actually meet at both years. Sometimes there were schools that met at 1 year, but then the next year they were way down the list. Or they were way down the list in 17 and in 18 they'd come up, but there wasn't enough trend data to show that they would actually stay up in those categories. So what I'm asking is, for your feedback on, do you think this process will be, fair to schools? Is it going to result in us being able to identify the correct schools, especially for the schools that are going to get national recognition? I think we forgot to copy the distinguished schools criteria. That was my fault, Becky, because I didn't put it in the folder. But there are 3 categories for national schools. The first category is high-performing schools that are in the top 5% of Title I schools for 2 consecutive years, based on all of the points in the accountability system. Category 2 are schools that are showing growth in closing achievement gaps between their disaggregated groups and the all students group. And then they added a 3rd category 2 years ago, and that category is to recognize schools that are doing really outstanding work meeting the needs of a specific student population. So it could be schools that are doing really wonderful work supporting their students who are English learners. Or it could be a school that's doing really wonderful work supporting students who are experiencing homelessness. Or, students with disabilities maybe in a school are just really performing well above the state averages. So we have that category. So what we're proposing for this coming year, Christelle Estrada, she's out of state this week, but last year and this year she's been doing this remarkable work where she looks at schools in LEAs as a system. And she looks at those schools that are serving students who are English learners. and then going in and taking a team of people from across the agency. So we've had staff from special education participating, people from our title programs and school improvement participating, people from teaching and learning, people from assessment and accountability. It's been a really agency-wide effort, and people are going into schools and working with the school principals, meeting with principals, going in and observing classroom instruction with an eye for what kinds of supports are being provided for students who are English learners. And so Dr. Estrada has been identifying some really remarkable practices that are taking place in some of our schools. Just, there's times when she's come back to the office literally just jumping up and down for joy and, you know, crying because she said, you would not believe what I saw happening in this particular school. It was just amazing. I've been able to go with her twice, once last year, and I just went with her recently to one of our larger LEAs a couple of weeks ago, and it really is remarkable what you see. So then she looks at the data, looks at the school report cards, looks to see how those schools are doing. And so we have identified 2 potential schools for Category 3. And those schools are Westmore Elementary in Alpine School District and Ashley Elementary in Uinta District. Those are 2 schools that she's felt are really doing remarkable work on behalf of their English learners. So we've looked at their data.
What was the Uinta school?
Ashley Elementary. We've looked at the data. We've, again, checked those schools against the targeted support and improvement list. Those 2 schools are not on targeted support and improvement. So those are the 2 schools we would like to put forward. We can only send 2 schools each year for national recognition. So we will always send one for that first category, which is the overall high performance. And as I said, last year we sent Belknap Elementary from Beaver District was Category 1, and Wasatch Elementary in Davis School District went for Category 2, which was closing the achievement gaps. We've never sent a school for Category 3. And as I said, we can only send 2, and they have to be from different categories. We can't send 2 high-performing ones or 2 closing the achievement gap. They have to be from 2 different categories. So we would propose that Alpine School District and Uinta School District have an opportunity to send in nominations and applications on behalf of Ashley Elementary and Westmore Elementary. And then we would have to look at those applications and then select one. We can only pick one.
Those are both for the language.
And that would be for the serving English, students who are English learners.
Is there already a developed rubric?
There's not actually a developed rubric, but there are certain things we look for. One is a letter of recommendation from that LEA superintendent or, you know, whoever is the leader of the LEA. We look for letters of recommendation coming from teachers and parents. And for example, when Wasatch Elementary last year won the award in Davis, they had letters from some of the children. They had letters that some of the parents had written in Spanish, and then they attached an English translation of that. They filmed video clips of some of the things occurring at the school. Val and Tammy Long and I had an opportunity to go up there and visit last spring. They were having an assembly, and the superintendent and the assistant superintendents were all there recognizing the children. They had children up giving speeches about what they'd accomplished at Wasatch. I mean, they really did an outstanding job of, you know, submitting evidence that that school was really doing wonderful things on behalf of kids. So then that last category would be the national distinguished. And so again, those schools would be chosen from the Utah Distinguished List of School-Wide Schools. So again, it came from this list right here. And you can see that Parowan Elementary really was almost at the very top of those rankings in both 17 and 18. Because we won't have access to the 2019 data until January, and these schools have to be submitted by November 30th, we're going to have to base it on 2017 and 2018 data until we get to a point where the data is actually available to us earlier in the fall at some point. So what questions do you have about this process, or what concerns do you have?
So would you go ahead and, you've got like Utah Distinguished and Utah Reward and the National. So are you going to reward all these that are on the list, and then for Utah's rewards, and would just send 2 on the National? Did you know, right?
Yes, what I would propose is that these schools would all get a letter and a certificate of achievement that we can send out. That's what we did in the past with the reward schools. Becky made really beautiful certificates that were signed, and she actually got frames that were sent out so schools could display that. And then the National Distinguished Schools, we give them we give those LEAs a supplemental Title I award of $15,000, so a team can register and attend the national conference to get there. They have a very nice ceremony in front of the entire conference at one of the keynotes, and each school comes up, they get a banner, and the principal comes up to the podium and gets to talk for a minute or two about what they're, and during that time, the schools submit photographs to the National Association. They have those kind of streaming on the Jumbotron as they're up accepting their awards. So it's a really nice honor. But it's an expensive conference. The registration is like $599 per person. This year it's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, February 4th through the 7th. So giving them that extra money allows them to register a team and help cover their travel so that they have that opportunity to attend.
I have a question. Reward schools have been on the school improvement and school turnaround page on our website. And is that under ESSA that those are clumped together? Or is
Reward
it just...
schools don't exist anymore in ESSA.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm just curious how, in going forward, like those Title I schools to have recognition on our website seem kind of buried on the school
In the
yeah.
bad news.
So I would like to actually put it on the Title 1A, the main Title I page for distinguished schools. So that it's called out a little bit more in line. Because yeah, it is kind of buried in there right now, and nobody really knows it's there. And we haven't named reward schools, since ESSA became the law because it wasn't required, so.
Shoot high and go for that main banner on the front page of our website.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, yeah, we don't allow us to do that. The Secretary of Education just recently announced Blue Ribbon Schools, and we've never had any, knowledge of how those schools are picked. I don't know if they self-nominate. Do you know, Kim?
I don't know.
But they just put out a list of
I know,
schools.
I was wondering that too, like, how do you?
But I don't know how, and like last year, Belknap Elementary, the principal said they were a national Blue Ribbon school, and then they also got the Title I Distinguished School. But how they get that other award, I really don't know. I think it's a self-nomination, and they have to submit things, and somehow they chose. A lot of times, as I've looked at those Blue Ribbon schools, a lot of times they are schools with very low percentages of poverty. Like I know a couple of years ago, there was one particular school, and I looked up the poverty rate, and it was like 6%. So I thought, well, that's nice, but, there aren't as many needs in a school like that as there are in some of these other.
Extra interest, $20,000
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any other questions, concerns, things you have recommendations for making changes? Hi, Jan.
Where's the deputy for you?
Put her right here.
Yeah, she's right here.
I don't know if you do motion, but I really like that idea of making the that's good. Higher up on that page.
It's a nice idea to bring it back. People in the schools work really hard.
They do, they work very
They're
hard,
succeeding.
and there's such little recognition. And it's really hard for schools to be, consecutive years to be in these categories.
Do we do any recognition with our board, like bringing them in and announce them?
We haven't, but I was thinking they really should be like one of the,
That's what I was thinking.
the education highlight at the beginning of a board
That's what I was
meeting.
thinking, that they should be an education highlight, so.
We've not done that, but I think that we need to.
I would like that, because it is really hard to be a Title I school and then work that hard for this type of recognition. They are working
school.
really hard and have a lot of challenges,
Yes.
so I think it should be one of our.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, so thank you for mentioning that, because we can get it in the minutes, and it can be part of our motion.
If you did it right after the national conference, you got pictures of them up on the stage or something.
Yes.
That would be really good.
Yeah, we've always had them come and present at our spring Title I directors meeting, so they get that little bit of recognition, but
I think it would be great for
Kind
our
of
board
talking
too,
to
to then
them.
say, hey, these schools have been recognized for doing this, and this is how you get this recognition. I think it would be good for the board to hear that too.
yes,
and then-
I love that idea, Kim. And something that the National Association is going to start doing this year is on the national website. They've always had a list where you could click on the state and then it will give you a list of schools in the past that have had the award. But what they're asking schools to do now is submit some information about what specific things they're doing that they feel have led to their success, so that there's kind of other schools can go looking and say, I want to know what this school is doing that helped them achieve this, and so there will be kind of a database of practices and strategies and evidence-based things that they're doing to really achieve that recognition.
I think developing a rubric long-term would be beneficial.
I think you're right, Trina. I think that's very good feedback. So we'll get some people together, and again, we'll run it past this committee for
I
feedback.
like that too, because then it doesn't seem like it's such a.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I love all the presentations and the letters, but if school A submitted 4 student letters, and
Yeah.
school B submitted 6, I mean.
One really cute kid was
Yeah.
on it.
Right.
I feel ya, I was like, I'll be on that committee.
Right.
Well, that's an
I think that
excellent
stuff
idea.
matters when, yeah.
Yes, or half something objective, that's good.
Yeah, so that's really, really great feedback. So we can start working on that. We'll run it by you again, and then the Title I directors are meeting again November 20th, so we'll run it past. They saw an early draft of this at our September meeting, but we ran out of time to really talk to them about it. So let's give them some additional information that we want to include. And
This is nice though, this is really comprehensive and this really, a lot of time went into this, looking at this, so.
yeah, when Leah said, you need to do these standard operating procedures, and this was kind of on my mind because it's always this time of the year, and I thought, okay. When I started really writing down each individual thing, it was a lot of steps involved, and so all these dates I put on here, like a wish list for the
Well, I like it though, I mean, because it really kind of outlines, okay, like, this is a process. And
It is.
All these things have to be
Yeah,
done.
it involves
and-
financial operations, and Sandy and Tammy Long, our other fiscal specialist, in helping us get the funding set up, and, making sure it's in Utah grants and all that kind of stuff, so do we have someone who's willing to make a motion?
I will.
Okay, Nancy.
to kind of accept this and move forward with it as we've discussed.
Okay, do we need some specific language in there, Barbara, about some of the things you pointed out?
After someone's made a motion, then before you, and it's been seconded, before you vote, that's the time for discussion.
Oh, okay, then.
So that's a really good time for.
Thanks so much.
What are the specifics that we want, you know, if there's any specifics? You can just have your discussion then, and then you can
Okay.
vote. So,
Okay.
so technically, we could have made a motion before you started talking.
Oh, all right.
We could.
Okay.
But it's not, yeah, but.
I'm not a Robert's rules.
But you didn't, well, you were like, in essence, doing a presentation. You did a presentation, and then you make the motion that people would like to, and all motion, in essence, a motion and a second, you just want to have, be able to discuss it. It doesn't really mean, you can not like what they're talking about, but you can make a motion just because you want to.
Oh, okay, so that then there's.
Yeah, sometimes people say, oh, it means I have to vote.
Yeah.
But so then you make a motion, and someone seconds it, and then you say, is there any more discussion? And that's when people can say, well, let's make sure we have this and this and this, and then you can vote.
All right, so we'll let Nancy go ahead. Do you want to state your motion again?
Okay, well, I move that we approve this document as something that we want to go forward with to honor schools, Title I schools who are performing well. And I love some of the discussion we already had. I don't know if we want to include that or have that after, but I think it's a great idea.
To include a rubric?
And the education highlight, and then bringing a recognition to the main page.
Yes.
So do we do that? Do we have people second and vote on Nancy's motion, and then we discuss?
No, you discussed it before you vote.
Okay.
So right now, you've had a motion on the floor, people are discussing the motion, just like you said, so let's make sure we include this. If you want, if enough stuff's been mentioned that you want to remake your motion, so.
To include all
Really
of
includes
that.
all those you can, so it's in the minutes that I would like a motion and include these steps, or whatever, you can, and then just vote on it. But that stuff will also be included in the minutes, depends on what the discussion was, so it depends on how you feel about that.
Okay.
I think we could just include it in the minutes moving forward, but.
Okay. So do we have a second then?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So we'll move forward with that. I'll get a committee of our staff together to start looking at developing a rubric. And we'll send that around for the review. And then we'll talk to the Title I directors on November 20th. And get their feedback.
Has Leah given you a format on what she wants these procedures to be put in, like a rubric? You know?
No.
I hate you all
No.
work for a rubric,
Yeah.
and then Leah goes, oh, by the way, this is the format I want everything in.
Yeah, she showed us some standard operating procedures that the Child Nutrition Department had developed.
Okay,
So
I
we were able-
just don't want
We
you,
looked at some samples.
don't want you to have to double
Yeah.
work.
Well, the document refers to a rubric, so that's why,
Yeah, no, and I think it's a great idea, it's a
Yeah.
great way to do it, but if.
that's why I asked about it,
And
because
ask
I
for
wondered like
recording.
if each category was gonna have a separate one.
Yeah.
I don't think each category would have a separate one, because it's basically, this is the process to come up with this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all databases. If you
Yeah,
have
these
two,
are all
like
databases,
Christelle
yeah.
identified two she'd like to
Yes.
identify, so now
Then
you're
they
putting
have-
them head to
yeah.
head, so you better make those
Yeah, then they
exceptions.
have to apply if they choose to.
Well, and I came in late, but I kind of got the essence, if I missed it, of what the reason for the rubric was to balance it. So one school didn't do a heartfelt
Yes.
one element that got everybody, when another school had 6 different evidences that was more. So I think it's more about
Right.
the what is submitted and the
Yes.
quality and the quantity and that type of thing versus all the depth of what it is.
Yeah.
Is that what I was
Yeah, I
gathering?
think it's so
To level the
that,
playing
yeah, so
field
that
a
when we
little bit?
review, if we get multiple applications and we review, we're objective and not
Yeah.
subjective
Right.
about, oh, this application looked better than that one, or this one had this bell and whistle, but
Yeah,
this
because
one
you
didn't.
have data already. You've
Yeah,
already
we already
got
have the
rubrics and-
data.
So this is just about leveling the playing field for
In those
the.
applications.
Okay.
Yeah, and Ogden's had a couple of distinguished schools in the past few few years, so JM's well aware of that and the hard work that they did.
Yeah, and the whole key is the district has to help the school
Yeah, the
in
district has to
submitting that.
step
It
up.
can't be a school on its own, because like we brought in our our testing specialist, curriculum specialist, they helped put everything together, and yeah, it was a whole group effort.
And I think the rubric would help as well if we send that out to LEAs, ahead of time, because in the past, we have had LEAs where we always contact the superintendent or directors first. We don't contact the school principals. Because a few years ago, there was one superintendent that said, this school is not doing what the LEA wants it to do. We do not want them getting a national recognition. No, we are not nominating the school. So then that school's not even aware that anything occurred. But a couple of years ago, we had one LEA that we contacted the district superintendent and the Title I director. They just went to the school principal and said, submit something, and all the school principal did was write a letter that just said, we're awesome, pick us. And there was no information included about anything they were doing or, like I said, we have their data, but there was no, what does this actually look like at your school? It really put her at a disadvantage, and then we had other LEAs that,
And that, I think, is where the rubric that the selection committee reviews could come into handy, because then you could send that along with the letter, because then it's like, have an element of district participation and all that, and it's like, okay, now we know what's expected, and then you've leveled the playing field at that. Because honestly, if you send that rubric out and then you get crap versus awesome, then the crap just goes by the wayside. That's their choice. You've leveled the playing field by everyone getting it.
You're modeling good instruction.
I'm sorry, I just realized the meeting's being recorded. I apologize.
Well, you're busy, just a little bit. Sorry. So thank you. That was all we really have for this meeting. Short and sweet. So I have some proposed dates for the next meeting, which is typically in February or March. So I've listed some possible dates. Do any of those dates seem like they might work better than another one, or would you prefer that we send out like a doodle poll or something? What would be best?
I think you're early enough, you can just grab it.
Which one?
I said, you're early enough, you could just grab it.
Just grab
Just say, this is
it.
gonna be it, and then we'll schedule it.
Yeah, you are early enough, because then we could readjust if anything's there.
I'm sure you proposed around CCSS.
Do you have is the February 2?
Is that CCS?
No, it's right around there now.
Oh, the February.
Is February too soon after the national? You need a little more
Yeah, that's,
time to get ready.
it's like, yeah.
Isn't that right after national?
February and March.
So I thought I checked mine.
You
to
probably
see.
did, I don't even know.
Yeah, I checked my calendar to make sure.
Well, that, if any of this, that's also Gear Up, that's a big
The
state.
February date.
The February date is the National Gear Up
Gear Up.
Conference.
So maybe that's not good then.
It's the last date of the National Gear Up Conference is the
Which one is
26th, February
The
26th.
February.
okay.
The February date, I just have it in there.
Yeah, so we can avoid that.
March 11th will probably be the second last day of the legislature.
Okay.
So that might not
Oh,
be
that's
good.
true. That might not be a good day.
I don't have it looked up, but that sounds like about what it'd be.
Yeah, the legislature does typically end
Yeah, second week on Thursday.
second or third week of March.
Should be like the second week.
So should we try for I'm not sure about the legislature.
My guess is it's closer to the 11th than the 18th.
Is that?
It's usually that second week in March. Usually Wednesday, but now it's Thursday.
Why don't we say the 18th, and then
18th.
I will follow up on the legislature, see if we've got dates. I'm sure they
Yeah.
do.
So we're going to the 18th.
March 18th.
Yeah, March 18th.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a problem if they were just meeting, but I think it might be the second last day, and that would be.
Oh, yeah, that would be a problem for
Yeah.
people, so. Okay. I want to thank each one of you for being here. We really appreciate this. It's your insights and help and support, really make a difference for what we're trying to do. Kind of keeps us on the right page, making sure that we're not, not considering some perspective or something that we, just kind of overlooked accidentally, and just having multiple voices with different perspectives in the world is really helpful to us. But Jan, I'm sorry you came all the way down.
I'm so sorry, I was late. I was just in a data meeting that I went way longer. And I couldn't, I apologize. But I want to show you you're important. It's worth a drive.
Thank you. So I just looked up, and they have dates for the legislature, and it looks like right here that the last day, the 11th is the last day to pass any bill with a fiscal note of more than 10,000, and Thursday the 12th is the last day of the session.
So it is the last. Okay, so let's try for the 18th then. Thank you, Kim. And Kim came in a little bit later after the meeting started, but Kim Fraud was our wonderful colleague from special education. She's the Assistant Special Education Director here at the Utah State Board of Education. She's a wonderful colleague. We love working with Kim.
Apologize for being late.
She's an excellent, amazing educator. And so
Great resource.
yeah. Love working with her. And then everybody I think knows Sandra Jolovich-Moat. She's an executive director in Ogden School District, and has done amazing work in Ogden. Every role she's had up there as a school principal and working with turnaround and school improvement and Title I and everything.
A lot of years.
She's really incredible. So I appreciate each one of you for what you bring to this community. So
Thank you.
thank you again.
Oh, thanks.
She was in a confusion state, so I didn't want to leave, so that's why.
I totally understand. So, no, I totally get it. No, you can't. You really totally get it. Is she scared away now? Okay, good.
I mean, they have a county commission here. People here and the whole
can register yourself as
well.
well.
Yeah, all of them are there. Because well, and there were parents there. They have to John's watching this Harvard.
Good now.
No, I totally get
Please don't get
it. I totally
One year on because, it was in the winter and they have to more about they have this tractor pulling around these trees and all the people came out of their gas. Now I have to write this down.
That our team goes through it. So there was
And the town knew.
that's where you live around. They're designating themselves, which is great. It really is. They don't understand why you designate yourself. So just so you know that if they do it that way, the registration form is just so much easier.
I'll bring that up in
Because the follow is just so much more and less chances of more of the following across the district.
Right, well, you're coming from a perspective of understanding and knowing the situation rather than trying to discover them, which might sound like trying to catch them.
Help me understand what does that
Oh, I appreciate this.
And then Mario and I met yesterday, she's gonna be sending you our plan because we don't have that yet. I got that email.
Okay.
She goes, oh, yes, you make it earlier, I'll get that to you. So
Okay, no worries, thank you so much.
See, that was worth the drive over
Totally
just to
was.
have a quick conversation.
can tell you.
What's
for me, I don't know.
Talk to parents from meeting
I totally get having to stay with her. She can get herself wrapped up in
Oh, I know, and
all sorts of emotions.
and I just had to make that choice to be creative where she felt comfortable with it. And otherwise, that goes on for a long time.
Yeah, she's blocked. She can't.
Yeah, so I figured you'd understand.
I totally do.
I know you have to go to we just finish this. No, we're not finish this. We got this.
I thank you for that.
She starts out gathering. I do things one night. You want data.
Yeah, I totally get
These kids are important, but he just did everything.
I did it earlier. I'll see you. JM, is there any way we can make your time more meaningful?
Just that conversation.
Oh, good. Okay.
He now knows why I was like. No, this one.
Oh, you're.
And it was about Dallas, and she was so really frustrated, confused, and she was the one that's double checking everything, and she was in such a state, I had to stay.
Yes.
And all I said was that, and Jeff was like,
I totally
Nice
get
David,
it.
how you got
She's the kind of personality that she has a hard time. She just builds a case for why it's even worse and worse and worse. So you really have to talk through things with her.
yeah, and I think she had 1 year left before she retires, so her skill set's very little.
It's really fast.
So we got her through it, and so the
Yeah,
But I said, Jeff, you know why I did it.
These are like, oh yeah, I totally get it.
Because she's the one that's verifying all the police.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, no, I can't have it.
Right.
And this person is like, last year we had 741 homeless kids. We only have 100 and no. You need to talk to Jeff. Jeff will help you.
Is this a level 5 reaction or?
But he thought it happened in the October one here, but he hasn't found out the kids yet.
Like, my district was telling salaries at December 1 report. So we can, December 1's going to be way off because we reset. It's a big change, and I'm just trying to train them to find my kids. And he goes, no, it's not. A lot of that. It's the weird, some of the things I'm more passionate about are no longer mine. And then just so you guys know, if you, with school districts are going to electronic designation, they can designate themselves as homeless. So we have a list of 405 kids that the parents have designated themselves. So it makes the follow-up so much more friendly. This is what I take with Denise to understand. We just have it just, I help me understand it can be up to when you designate. So we can use this as this, and then you send it to them. And then you document what they say, and then we can follow up if we have.
Yeah, if they need
But
services.
this is just so much nicer.
Much more humane.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not inquiring.
No.
It's like,
How can you show how it does it? Yeah, you're not embarrassing.
no, because you
Yeah,
identified yourself.
that's a much nicer.
Max's link help you? We were kind of guessing at
Yeah,
which link you went.
Well, what it was Tracy. And the good news is I just met with Benji this morning.
Oh, good.
I walked him through it because he never used it.
Yeah. Good to know. That's a really good thing to know.
Yeah.
They're different. We all like different modes of
He
communication.
opened up the clearinghouse, and he's doing a lot of tier 1 classroom, which is RTI. So we looked at, and there's lots of choices. So now you go through that list and you find the one that best captures what
There's the allocation.
Oh, well, then I just send you the link and the justification like right here, because I created a cheat sheet for him from him. And
Thank you.
oh, I can do that. I said, you send it to me, and then I'll send it to them in a way that looks nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then Tracy, what it is, it's second steps. They're really
Oh, that's a social emotional
Yes.
learning.
And so
And
If she
then
wants
just
to
kind
do
of make
that,
sure that the
that's what
ones
she was
that
looking
I
for.
I
like
guarantee you
are
there's
the
research
right
on
ones.
this. I
I know
remember
there
it being a
is,
research.
because Aspen Henderson
Yeah.
sent
Okay.
us a link of their research, and so she said that it was helpful because she was able to find some additional information. But here's where I'm coming from, is that she has a thing that's all of the attendance and the second steps and how it, and it's just pages of it, and every different intervention lists all of its mild, strong, and it's correlated. Do you want me just to do the link that Aspen
Yeah, that was
Yes.
great.
would
if
that
you
be
could send it.
enough?
That's-
And then
that
just
would
their
be helpful to
justification of
some
why they
others,
selected
yeah.
it? Because it's solid, we're doing it across
Oh,
the board.
that's
as
what's
a district.
upsetting, you know, of course we want this to be,
So I'll just call
now we're
Tracy.
just,
See, that's even more meaningful
Fine.
right now. So then I can just tell Tracy, hey Tracy, I'm gonna send
Yep.
Aspen's link if you just give me your justification. And then you don't have to do anything else.
great. It's interesting, no, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
glad we
she
have
works
3
so
more
hard.
years, couple more years.
She
to
really does,
figure
I
this
don't wanna
out,
waste
but-
their time. because
No,
they're
we don't wanna
so-
waste,
no.
and that's why we were like, we're gonna require this for every strategy, and we can't even
Yeah.
really do it.
But, and that's their high leverage point with Benji, the RTI is the other high leverage point. And Sandra, we did spend all our FY9 money, we're meeting on Friday to work with Chris to get that in. He just, you know that that's the same timing as the state audit of all the business offices?
Oh,
And they hate us right
Really?
now. Yeah, that deadline of the 25th, he's right in the middle of finishing the state audit.
oh gosh.
Oh, yeah.
That's huge.
So we're meeting as our team to get everything up to date and align Utah Grants budget with what we did. And then we're hoping that he'll be willing to do it next week. Okay, I'm trying. But it's all been spent. And I think we even did a real quick, small request for reimbursement in the summer. So we had done one for FY9, but it's all spent. So,
Okay.
okay,
I
but
will just
I'm
send
gonna-
it out.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, but just, you know, that timing, that's right in the middle of the state's audit, and
We seem to be really good
they
at
hate us when we come to them. Chris, like, ugh. It's like,
Oh, yeah,
I
they
Chris,
should
how
be
you
more on the
doing?
ball.
That's
Yeah, how you
intense.
doing,
Yeah,
Because I'm not going away.
that's intense.
So, but I'll send that, and then I'll remember that, but I'll just include that. And I even
For
put,
us, CSI is not identified again for 2 years.
Yeah.
and then I
So
did,
hopefully by then we'll have it very, so much more
And we'll get our
refined,
data on
and our,
time.
it'll be
And then
on
I
time,
did
rainbows and unicorns.
a
will-
little
Yeah.
sheet that I'll send you as a PDF. I took your email and I took key points.
Oh,
And I created one just to send a quick one pager to I'll send it to you.
cool, thanks.
You might want it in the future.